Welcome back. And when we left, we were talking about the economic benefits to the industry and the information that is created by this DNA reporting that can be transferred up the value chain. And of course, at the top of the value chain, we have the consumer. So in one of our past episodes, we interviewed a consumer. We've been doing consumer interviews over the last little while, and there's some perceptions out there about food safety, especially around, we talked about GMOs a little bit earlier, but also some of the things with regard to animal agriculture. And you know, now it looks like we're in a position with the beef information system, or at least transferring the information to the consumer, that the consumer may have the information now to make a better buying decision at the grocery store level. What do you guys think of that?
Yes, I agree with you. They have a lot of information now to make better buying decisions, and consumers in Canada, they're changing the way they look at food. Before, in the 50s, 40s, we were just happy to have food, right? Yeah. So now we're getting a little bit picky about the type of food that we want, and it's good because the consumer is putting on to producers that they want their food to be nutritious, they want it to be safe, and they want it to be produced in an environmentally sustainable manner. Plus, they're concerned about animal health and welfare. So these are issues that we have to deal with as producers, as academia, as people providing really a service to the end consumer. And genomics has a role to play in this. And part of that role is traceability. Some of that role is in terms of meat quality and nutrition, in terms of identifying animals that will produce tender, well-marbled steaks. Plus genomics has can have an impact on the environment as well, and how animals use resources, so limited resources to produce a kilogram of beef.
Well, like your feed efficiency example as well, that's using less resources and creating more value from it.
Absolutely. And so if we can reduce our environmental impact using a tool like genomics or any sort of selection tools, that should be a positive story for the consumer.
Let's have some fun with labeling for a second here. Do you think there's a possibility of meat being labeled genomically selected for, or some kind of interesting tagline on there that says to the consumer that, no, this is not, we didn't deal with GMOs on this, we genetically select the right traits for you to make it to your plate?
So absolutely, Rob, and we probably wouldn't use genetically selected, we probably use naturally selected, naturally bred, because really genomics is just a tool to help natural breeding. And if we take that one step further, when we think of health and food safety, and if we think of an outbreak, or if you have you get some sort of infection from or contamination in your meat, one of the amazing things that genomics can do is it can tell us all the information of an individual animal. Well, that information is actually retained, that DNA is retained in the meat you eat. So it's possible that if I was eating a steak here, I could take a piece of that steak and I could do genomic information on it, and I could identify the genetic sequence. And if I have done that with every animal produced in Canada, I'd be able to link that and know exactly what animal came from that steak. So it's a way of tracing a product that's indisputable. You don't have to rely on any labeling. It's in the DNA, and the DNA doesn't change. So if traceability at a genomic level is the gold standard of tracing meat and meat products, and no nation in the world is doing this currently, but there's a potential down the road that every animal gets genomically tested, and that will give us a food safety network in the country that would be unsurpassed.
So if we maybe looked at it from this point of view, you have a steak and you have a label on it, it's got a QR code, let's
Absolutely.
say, you scan it with your phone, and all of a sudden, because we have this information, a website pops up on your phone, it says, these are the genetic traits, this was naturally selected for, this is what you're buying, this is what you're eating. So wouldn't that go a long way for improving consumer confidence in the food industry?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think it will, and I think we have the technologies in place to do that now, and we are getting those QR codes on our meat products, and some supermarket chains are offering that.
Now you mentioned having that traceability on each animal, and one of the keys to making that happen is getting that data into a system to begin with, and that starts at the producer's level. So, how affordable is that for the Alberta producer, Canadian producer, to access that? Are they spending a lot more, thousands of dollars to get into this, or what's going on there?
So that's one of the interesting things, and I talked at the beginning of the show that we're really in the terms of a genomics revolution. It's because the price of genetic testing has become so cheap. We're not at the price point now where it's affordable for everybody in the industry to have a genetic test. But we're getting there. We can do high density genetic testing for under $100. We can do low level scanning genetic tests for $10 to $15. We're getting to the point where we see in 3 to 5 years, or maybe 5 to 10 years, the price to do that genetic test could be as low as $5. So when we're talking about that kind of information for such a low price point, it's going to begin again to change how we're going to use genomics in our everyday process.
So obviously it's going to incur an extra cost to some of the producers that want to use that and have that information put out. So do you think the consumer is going to pay for that information? If there's an extra premium, maybe 10% more per pound or whatever it is, they're paying, will they pay that to get that information? What do you feel about that?
Well, I think some will, definitely. Consumer studies have always said the number one driver of consumer preference is price, and that will always be the case. So in terms of getting consumers to spend a little bit more on their product, it's going to be a small proportion of the industry, much like niche markets are. I think that will grow as people become more confident in the food they buy and are willing to pay more. Genomics also has a very, it can help a lot of other niche markets like natural beef production, where they're not using growth implants, for example, where you can identify the genetics of an animal to do the same as what a growth implant might do.
Now I'm going to stop you there because we're going to go for a break here, but that's a pretty hot topic amongst consumers, obviously, with Zilmax and being rejected by Tyson and Cargill in the last month as a growth promotant. They won't accept any more animals in their slaughter facilities with that. So it's clearly on consumers' minds. So when we come back, we're going to delve into that a little bit more.